Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. We're going on day 2. Luka Doncic has been traded to the Los Angeles Lakers for Anthony Davis. We're going to dive deep into what in the world just happened. I still am completely and utterly baffled and shocked by this thing. We're going to talk about Nico Harrison's press conference, where I guess we got some answers, ? And then we'll talk through everything else that we've thought about since this has happened. Bryce Simons is with me, and let's hit the music first, though.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? My 10-year-old son started his 30-team NBA bracket tournament. Like, he put a little bracket together on a piece of paper on 2K, ran through it. And then you should have seen the look on his face today as he finished his bracket. And then I told him, hey, buddy, you got to redo that because Luka Doncic just got traded for Anthony Davis. And he was shocked and awe whenever I told him that. So good luck, buddy, starting that all over again. Maybe we'll wait till Friday to do that after everything really clears with the deadline.
It's just completely crazy to me. Like, it's completely baffling, shocking. I don't even know how to put into context almost what this is. Like, that's what I'm writing today for The Athletic, is literally just like, I said this last night on the show with Andrew. We have never seen a player this good in his prime be traded at the deadline before.
Without
not even a question.
Well, and he didn't request it, right? Like, even a guy that was requested maybe hasn't happened, but there was nothing here until last night when the tweet hit.
No, look, like like some of this stuff, like I said last night, but like there was no indication of this. Like, I had gotten a text about like a Dallas move, but the impression was it was like, oh yeah, like Maxi Kleber's getting traded, like, for stuff. You know what I mean? And Maxi's in this deal, but like, it wasn't Luka. It's out of this world insane.
All you have to tell people is everybody's first reaction was Shams got hacked. Everybody's first reaction to reconcile what they were seeing was that Shams got hacked. And it was funny because I thought, I was like, how much do you think you would have to pay Shams to send out a tweet that was wrong, like to just fool all of us because it would only last like 10 minutes and then somebody would be like, actually, no, this isn't right. But I'm right. Like, I even went there, like, what if somebody got to Shams and like paid him a whole bunch of money just to like trick all of us or whatever? It was he had to send a tweet that said it wasn't a joke. That's all we have to know, is like, that's how unbelievable this news coming across was. And I also love that they did it at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night. Like, they couldn't do it earlier in the day or wait till this morning, or it's not like there was a football game today. Like, they could have easily just made it the entire Sunday for all of us. So
yeah, it's crazy to me that we're here. It's completely crazy to me here. The way that this went down, and this is where we'll transition into Nico Harrison's press conference, right? Because I think that's now like the differentiating step that we didn't have last night, right? Was Nico's answer on some of this. Like, Nico released a statement to Tim McMahon where he said, like, I believe defense wins championships and everything. He reiterated that today, as we'll hear. We're going to bring up some Nico Harrison press conference on the screen in a second here and talk through all of that. It eludes me. It's completely and utterly dumbfounding that Nico Harrison decided to do this. Like, I even went through like trying to rationalize it last night, right? I tried to decide, okay, like, let's stop and think here why Dallas could be doing this. let's at least consider the alternative for a second. But the more that I think about it, and the more that I've now seen the reasoning for Nico Harrison and what he has stated here, it's hard for me to fathom, I guess is where I'm at. Because look, there could be things he's not saying. Like, I completely acknowledge that. And I don't want to act like the public sentiment here that Nico Harrison is stating is exactly what's going on. But we did get a couple of answers here that I think are important to at least talk about, and we'll play them in a second. But watching Nico's press conference, what was your thought?
I took the same path of you where it was like, okay, this is shocking. And then it went to, how can I rationalize this, right? Because everybody went to, the Mavs got fleeced. This is stupid. Why would you ever trade Luka? And so my instincts are, well, I don't want to just fall in line with everybody else. Is there a different take? Is there a different path? Is there something else that I can see here? And I think there's some things, but ultimately it's like, this is 100 out of 100 times for the Lakers. And I know you already did this.
Oh yeah.
And you just can't get to it. And so then it's like, then I do what you do. Why? What? The only thing that could rationalize it for me is, I don't even know that like team building, team construction is the pitch. I know that's what he's going for.
No, it has to be that he said he wasn't signing the extension.
It's got to be something with Luka off the court,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's contract or they're tired of his stuff, whatever that stuff is, right?
Or you have to be willing to say, and Nico like went out of his way at this press conference, which is a clip I didn't pull, but like he said, look, I'm never going to talk bad about somebody.
He specifically said that. Yeah.
He did like kind of follow that with saying like, look, with the culture we're trying to build here, you know, there are guys who fit into the culture and there are guys that add to the culture.
Correct.
And the guys we acquired are guys that add to the culture. Like, that you could construe as a statement comparatively to Luka. I didn't. Like, I take Nico at his word that like he's not speaking terribly about Luka Doncic, right? But you could easily say that. Yeah, like he said that like there are levels to this. Like Sam Davison in the comments is like, yeah, he said I'm not going to talk about people, but there's levels to it. Yeah, totally. That's kind of what it seems like here. But I feel like if you're going to do this, you kind of have to give the reason for it. And if it's just like, look, we feel like as an organization, we were ready to move on from Luka Doncic because of, you know, there were, you know, myriad off court things that have occurred. You know, there are things behind the scenes that have happened. Like, okay, like if you want to say that, that's fine. I still would disagree with it, honestly, unless it's something like catastrophic. But everything I know about Luka is not like, he's not like a bad dude. He just is a guy that, you know, he's not a bad teammate. Like, he's not like, it's not like a Jimmy Butler thing. You know what I mean? Like, from what I know, like Luka is not a bad teammate. Like, if you see the interviews from pregame today with the Mavericks, like they're all kind of in a state of shock, it feels like to me. Like PJ Washington didn't play today, so he did pregame avail. Like Najee Marshall did pregame avail and like literally said like it doesn't feel real, right? So to me, it had to either be that, which it seems like it's not that. And from what I know, like it wouldn't be that. Or you would have to believe that like his body is just not going to age well, which like imagine being the person that trades Luka Doncic and pisses him off and like makes him decide to.
Not only that, you trade him to the one guy who may actually teach him to do things. If Luka's not doing things the right way, which listen, I have no insight to know, but you trade him to the one guy who is his superior in terms of career arc and has spent more money to play as long as possible to teach him how to. If there's one guy Luka's going to listen to, you just shipped him to that guy to play with him. You put him in the best possible scenario to maximize his career. It's not like you, with all due respect, you didn't send, I won't say a team because I could say the one behind me. So you send him to LeBron, and LeBron's the one guy that may get him like, Luka, if you want to be one of the greatest, this is how you do it. Like Nico may have done him a favor in regards to that if he truly wasn't taking care of his body.
And on the former side of what I said, we know that Luka didn't ask out because Mark Stein said as much last night. Mark Stein said they were on the track to getting this 5-year, $345 million extension done. And oh, by the way, Nico Harrison said it today as well. So
yes, that's okay. I figured you were going to play it. I wanted to touch on this, but
it wasn't really like a point. I think it was like, how do we make our team better? There's some unique things about his contract that we had to pay attention to. There's other teams that were loading up, that he was going to be able to make his own decision at some point of whether he wants to be here or not, whether we want to supermax him or not, or whether he wants to opt out. So I think we had to take all that into consideration and feel like we got out in front of what could have been a tumultuous summer.
Nico, did you have any indication from him or his representation that he was going to opt out or not take the extension or anything like that?
No, not at all. Not at all. Nothing verbally that would lead me to believe that.
Why would the Supermax be a difficult decision on your end?
Oh, no, it's not a matter of it being a difficult decision. It's a matter of, once you put that out there, they accept or they don't, and at that point you're on the clock.
So that's a confusing statement.
I didn't. This was the part of the press conference I did not understand. Even if I don't agree with some of the other stuff he said, Sam, maybe I'm just dumb, but I got lost in his answers with that.
I also got lost in his answers there because he's basically admitting there to, let's take him at his word, right? Even taking him at his word, he's admitting to try to solve a preemptive problem that might not exist.
Yeah.
Right.
And one that Luka never expressed in his own words, said Luka never expressed that verbally.
Like, did he, express non-verbally that he might not want to be there? Like, is that maybe, like the subtext there?
Maybe there's tea leaves in the way Luka goes about things that he's unhappy. But yeah, I got very confused because it was like, we would pay him. We don't think he would walk, or we don't have signs of that. But I just felt like it danced around and I got lost in his answers, and I was very unclear with that part of the press conference.
Yeah, to say that, like, yeah, we never got like a statement that he wasn't going to sign the Supermax, and then to follow that up by saying, yeah, but like, we put it out there and then there's like a decision to be made. Well, you make the decision after he doesn't sign the Supermax. Like, you can just say like, hey, and look, like there's an argument to where you say, okay, we're going to get out ahead of this, right? We're going to move him before we have to get into any of this, right? We're going to get out ahead of this and decide, you know what? We don't want to be the team that's left holding the bag in the summer where Luka is not signing the Supermax extension, which, by the way, like if I'm Nico Harrison, I am 1000% calling that bluff. Like, if you feel like he's not going to sign the Supermax, that's a bluff that I am just like, okay, you turned down $116 million
because of the amount of money Luka could potentially leave on the table by not. And that, to be clear, that would be something that would happen if he was still in Dallas, that would have been offered this offseason.
Correct.
Where he would still have 1 year under contract and a player option, which he probably could turn down and go, but like you would still have him under contract for a year where, to your point, if he turns it down, why are they in trouble? Like, does he think they lose too much leverage?
I think
he thought they would have lost leverage
idea that he's hinting at.
Okay.
Is that they would lose too much leverage. But here's the next clip. You never tried to create leverage in this deal. So here we go. Next clip.
Discussions with any other teams besides the Lakers about this deal?
No, and I'd like to give Rob Pelinka a lot of credit. Trades, you guys have been around here. Trades don't happen at the smallest level without stuff getting out. And Rob and I were able to have, really intense conversations over the course of, 3 or 4 weeks that started out as a coffee that, was more, hey, would you ever, I don't know, would I? Let me think of, and then it built upon that. And, we kept it between us. We had to keep it tight. J Kidd didn't know about it. But J Kidd and I are aligned, and we talk about archetypes, and we talk about the culture that we want to create. So I know the type of players that he likes without actually talking to him. Hey, would you like, so I know that. And J Kidd coached them when they won a championship. So I think when you're aligned with your coach like that, I know the type of players that he likes. And so I felt good about it making sense to where we're trying to go.
So there, he is just straight up admitting we never talked to anybody else about this. We never talked to another team about this. So, in my opinion, you can't be worried about leverage and, us losing all of this leverage in a potential deal if we try to sign him in the summer to the Supermax, which, by the way, he would have to turn down $345 million as opposed to the extension that he's eligible now, which, I'll continue to break that down a little bit more.
In Texas with no state taxes as well, right? Like that was
in Texas, no state income taxes.
Yeah, I shouldn't say no taxes, no state income tax. That's specific, important.
It's crazy. Like, it would be insane to do that. It would be entirely something new that we have not seen before for him to turn that down.
On top, he's on a team that is built and constructed very well for him, and a team that is coming up. Like, again, I think it's just important to note we're not talking about a disgruntled star who the team has failed to build around or failed to make moves or doesn't have a second star or they went and got him 2 lob threats because they knew he needed. So, like, why would he be unhappy around that organization? Unless, again, there's something we're not aware of. There's no reason to think he wouldn't sign for that money with that organization the way they've tailor-made the team to him.
So, and Great Babe here in the YouTube comments brings up the next point I was going to bring up. It's not actually quite 116. It's $116 million guaranteed that he could have signed for immediately, like this summer. That is the difference between the deal he can sign for this summer with the Mavs versus the Lakers. But if he structures it properly and does like a 2+1 this summer, he can end up making it so it's only like a $50 million difference with LA versus Dallas in terms of the way that this gets structured. Again, though, what this underestimates, saying it's only 50, is the state income tax in Dallas as compared to in California, where it is actually like a much bigger number in terms of take-home money that Luka would be taking home, as opposed to, quote unquote, only $50 million, right?
Yeah.
So again, like, I think that the number gets up to, like, honestly, I think it's like around 100 total still. Even so, like, it's right around there with the income tax number and everything. So it's an insane amount of money that he would have to turn down, which is why I am 100% calling this bluff. Like, that's what it comes down to. If it was that he might turn down our Supermax extension,
they miscalculated their own leverage.
Yes, 100%. And people can say like Luka's going to get 100 million from sponsors in LA. I mean, like, compared to Dallas is also an enormous city, like, nationwide. I think he's definitely going to make more with the Lakers, like, internationally and everything. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there's absolutely, he will make more on the endorsement market with the Lakers, but it's not going to be like 100 more. It's going to be more. Like, Luka loses money here, I think, for sure, is what this comes down to. It's a crazy, crazy, crazy. I still haven't heard why they would do this, right? And this is,
the monetary thing doesn't make sense, right? Like, that shouldn't have been a fear for them, I guess, is the point with this part of it.
Yeah. Okay, and now finally, let's get to this piece of it from Nico's press conference.
What would you just say to fans who are frustrated about this move?
I'm sorry they're frustrated, but it's something that we believe in as an organization. It's going to make us better. We believe that it sets us up to win not only now but also in the future. And when we win, I believe the frustration will go away.
Nico, what was the conversation like with Patrick Dumont when we introduced this idea to him?
The first time he laughed at me. No, I mean, Patrick, he's the owner. Obviously, he's the ultimate decision maker, but he entrusts in J. Kidd and I to lead this team, and he's putting the trust into us. And then, obviously, you got to get judged on the performance that you've done as a leader. And at some point, if it doesn't work out, then I'll be judged for that.
So, couple things there that were interesting to me. Like, so for people who don't know who Patrick Dumont is, so Patrick Dumont is the governor of the Dallas Mavericks. I said this last night, but like obviously like Miriam Adelson and the Adelson family bought the Mavericks last night, and I couldn't remember, there was like a son involved. Patrick Dumont is the son-in-law, I believe, of Miriam Adelson, who runs the Dallas Mavericks as the team's governor, owner, main person that is like the go-between. He's not even the go-between, like he is the ownership representative for the Dallas Mavericks. And the fact that he laughed at you when you brought this up, A, is really interesting to me. But B, I do almost like kind of want to give Patrick Dumont some credit here in like that group of ownership, assuming that they aren't like skimping on money. And it is important to note that they do get out of the luxury tax in this trade. I don't want to like sideline that entirely. But like from what I know, like people around the league like don't think that they're going to skimp on the team. Like that's the impression I've gotten. Like there's nothing there. So assuming that Patrick Dumont was just like, you know what? We've empowered really smart people. Nico Harrison made deft moves last trade deadline to get us to the finals. Let's trust in him. Okay, sure. Like I think that's like, we always talk about meddling owners and everything.
Sure.
That's the kind of owner that you want, in my opinion, as a guy who's just going to trust your front office group. Now, the fact that he like laughed at this though to start kind of says a lot, right?
Nico tried to make two jokes in that press conference and neither hit. And it was very awkward. I think he started the press conference trying to make a joke about something, maybe the way Jason Kidd handled it when he told J. Kidd or something. And it was like, no, nobody, it is interesting, right? If that's truly what happened, but then you put yourself in the ownership. It's like, this is Luka. This is the face of our franchise and a top 4 or 5 player in the NBA. And you're asking us to trust you to trade him. And I'm kind of with you. There's part of me that's like, hey, you put these basketball people in place to make these decisions, and people get pissed all the time that owners don't do this or they get in the way or whatever. Like, and I assume part of the conversation was like, Nico, if this doesn't work, you're getting fired. And I would assume Nico's smart enough that I'm sure he is to know that if this doesn't work, he's, going to be without a job. So, I think Nico's wrong making this calculation. There's part of me that because ultimately here's what I think. I think Nico, he thinks that bringing in AD and all of this is going to make them better. Like I can believe nothing else other than he believes that this defensive identity, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of Kyrie like trust in this as well, because he's going to have a huge offensive load. Whatever it is, I believe Nico believes that. Like, I kind of respect that. He has to know everybody's laughing at him right now. So the resolve to do this is somewhat respectable, even though I completely disagree with the decision and in the decision-making process and all of that.
Yeah, I disagree most with the look, I would never have traded Luka Doncic. I think it's completely baffling to trade Luka Doncic.
100%.
Like, I just want to say this from the jump.
Yeah.
What I disagree most with is the process, because at the end of the day, the Mavericks have very clearly made the choice to do this secretively, which was just like never a good idea, in my opinion.
Okay, so can we go down that road then? Because I find this
Sure.
I find this part of the conversation interesting, and so I want to be clear as well. I don't think this is a good trade for the Mavs. The Lakers should do this trade 100 times out of 100. And I have some Lakers questions too that I think are fun and interesting as well about that roster and where they land and all of that. But Luka Doncic is a top 4 player in the NBA, in my opinion. But I want to do this real quick. So, Sam, I want you to tell me what better player could they have gotten in a vacuum that's available right now? Okay.
So are we talking better trade asset or
No.
better basketball player?
Let's say that Nico and J-Kid's goal is to win games this season, to continue to be competitive and all of that. Because they better want to do that because they didn't get draft picks and they got Anthony Davis. Essentially, my point is, I feel like a lot of people are. Let's just do it. Would the Nuggets trade Jokic?
No.
Would the Thunder trade SGA?
No.
Would the Bucks trade Giannis?
No.
Would the Celtics trade Tatum?
No.
Would the Spurs trade Wemby?
No.
Anthony Davis was one of the next names on our all NBA list.
We went through this last night with Andrew. I do think that AD is the best name right now that they could have gotten, but two things here, obviously. First, you're betting an immense amount on Anthony Davis's health, and this is something we didn't talk about last night. You have Anthony Davis, who can be injury prone. You have Kyrie Irving, who you and I both think should be an all-star this year.
He's been incredible.
Incredible this season, and has been incredible since he's been in Dallas.
Yes, even last year.
Honestly, is frankly probably the most underrated player in the NBA at this point because of everything that comes with him. Everything does come with him. And you're doing this deal clearly without informing him, would be my guess. And you don't know how he's going to react to this either.
Because what made Kyrie great in Dallas, the reason I came to appreciate Kyrie's game, I guess again, was that he was able to play off of Luka and then be the guy when Luka wasn't on the floor. Now it's 36 minutes of you be the primary initiator. I know AD is offense but he's a little bit more of a play finisher. Yes, you can run some isolations but this is a lot more offensive load, which then means, okay, what is Kyrie going to do defensively? And I'm sure you guys talked about all of this. And again, I want to be clear. I'm not trying to justify the trade. I'm just okay, if this is what Nico thought he wanted to do, what was the better trade package that he could have gotten when it comes to just getting the best possible player to add to this roster for right now? Because the age thing is one of the biggest things. Luka being 25 and AD being 31 is.
But the other reason that the age thing is important is that they don't have access to any of their own draft picks from 2027 until 2030. They owe hilariously in 2028 Oklahoma City a first round pick swap that could really pay dividends when Anthony Davis is 38 years old or not 38, he'd be 36, I think, and Kyrie would be 35 or vice versa, whatever it is. That's a big factor. I think Charlotte gets one of these for PJ Washington. It might be top 5 or something protected. It's really, really crazy. It is really genuinely crazy. This is a thing.
You know what's funny is I listened to you and Tim the other day, and that was awesome stuff with the De'Aaron Fox stuff. And you guys brought up some interesting things. What was interesting in that was when you guys talked about the top guys in the league, and I think this applies to this trade. When you talked about the gap in the top guys in the league to the next tier, because you were talking about the difference between Fox and the 9th best player compared to the 9th best player to the 5th best player, whatever. And to me, that's where this breaks down is Luka's probably in a tier of 4 or 5 guys at the top for me when healthy, and AD's not. So even if AD is the 10th best player in the NBA, the difference in tiers is what matters to me in this situation. I thought it was interesting because you guys were talking about it in a completely different context. And then it very much applies here because as good as I think AD is, he's not Luka. And that obviously, and on top of the age, let's say they're going to trade Luka. Would you have wanted them to go get like, is there a different, they're going to trade Luka. I'm telling you that. Would you rather they took a different approach then, like young players and draft capital or something like that?
Yeah. I don't think an Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving duo is good enough to win a title over like Oklahoma City or Boston or whoever, right? Like that's just my opinion.
Or maybe the Lakers,
so
depending on how they round out their roster.
Depending on what they do. So like, to me, I need to just go a totally different direction if I'm trading Luka. Like I need to go get probably Franz Wagner and firsts from Orlando, or like, do they offer Franz and Jalen Suggs? Frankly, like that is something that like we probably should talk about, right? Is you might get multiple really good young players. Houston probably offers you, I mean, like they put Amen Thompson on the table for this, and they put other of their great young players. Like, do they do Amen and Alperin? Was my question yesterday. They really might. Like, that's how good Luka is. This is the thing I'm writing for tomorrow at The Athletic, is literally just Luka Doncic has played 6 years in the NBA. This is his 7th season. Yeah. He has made first team All NBA in the last 5 of those years.
Yeah.
Like Ryan Russillo said this on the Simmons show last night. I don't care if he's walking down the court with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. Like, the dude's unbelievable at basketball.
I found myself not caring about all, because that's the conversation too. Because you knew it was going to come out, right? Because the people that wanted to justify the trade, and even me when I was trying to justify it because I just wanted to try, was, oh, he comes in out of shape and all. And it's like, my biggest gripe with Luka is defensively. Like, I don't care what his body, he could weigh 300 pounds as long as he continues to get buckets. And his size is obviously part of why he's so good offensively.
Yeah.
The defensive stuff is my biggest thing with Luka, and why, like, I wouldn't call him the best player in the NBA. But yeah, I don't know. I think the Hoop Collective had him one of like 5 guys with 5 first team All NBAs in the league right now, or something like that. Like him, Steph, KD, LeBron, Giannis. There's one other or something like that. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Like I said this last night, like, Luka has a more historically relevant career in the NBA than Anthony Davis does already. Like, through 6 years or whatever. Like, Luka is just a better player than Anthony Davis has ever been. And is like, if their careers ended right now, like, he's a more historically relevant guy that would like matter more in the context of the league's history at this point. That's what's crazy about this. And Anthony Davis, by the way, was like the super prospect of all super prospects in the 2010s, right? Like, he's probably the best prospect of the 2010s, all due respect to Zion. He's come through on that, and Luka is still better.
I want to talk to you about, can we talk just about the Mavericks now? Like, the Anthony Davis fit and stuff? Because
yeah, let's do it. That's where I wanted to go next. So I'm into it.
I find it interesting of, okay, you're going to play him next to a center. So you're going to have weird spacing stuff. PJ Washington is now your 3, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
You have, like, you're still going to start Clay probably. So who's taking the, like, I don't know. Like, I know there's a potential defensive, like him and Gafford, like protecting the rim could be awesome and stuff. I still feel like I see it being a wonky fit though, with AD, PJ, all of that. So I'm interested to see how it looks. I truly am fascinated once we get past okay, the trade happened. Let's move on and evaluate what it looks like on the court. What's it look like offensively? How do they do matchups defensively? Can it really be an elite defense? Like, I am truly fascinated to see that.
So I generally agree. I'm assuming that they're looking at this kind of like the Cavs have built, right? With Jared Allen and Evan Mobley as their 4 and their 5, right?
Yeah.
Going big, having a creative 4-man who can attack and finish on the interior. It's not like Evan Mobley's like some incredible shooter, right? Teams still don't really guard him out there. He's made some shots this year, but you know, it's not like he's out there drilling threes every single night. I'm assuming that that's what Nico Harrison's idea is here. But again, Anthony Davis is 32 years old. You're asking him to guard on the perimeter even more now versus like having to do like the wear and tear on the interior. Like both things are difficult, right? I don't really love the AD fit on offense at the 4 at this point. I feel like it's going to be a bit of an issue in terms of being able to like space the court around Kyrie. Because what you're going to have Gafford in the dunker spot, Gafford or Lively in the dunker spot, because you're running AD ball screens with Kyrie, which is what you should do. But like then you're taking away kind of what makes Lively so special offensively,
and
which is like
best thing Gafford does as well.
Right, like Gafford's best as a rim runner. He's also pretty good in the dunker spot, honestly.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
But like Lively's best skill is
Pick and roll.
okay, the versatility of my role. I can roll all the way to the rim and be a lob guy. I can, short roll pass. I could short roll, put the ball on the deck and finish.
Mm-hmm.
There's just kind of a lot that he can really do, right?
That's interesting because I actually thought AD Lively offensively I believed in a little bit more because of one reason I think Mobley and Allen work is because they can pass. And I thought, okay, well, AD and Lively work a little bit better to me because they can both pass, where I don't trust. Listen, Gafford was awesome the other night when I watched him protecting the rim, like all sort of, but he's not the passer that Lively is. But that's interesting because if you take, like where do you put AD within that offense if Lively's running the screen stuff? So yeah. And I mean, PJ's taking those matchups probably anyway. So maybe that really doesn't change his role a whole lot on the defensive end. Yeah, I don't know. And here's the thing. Lively's not healthy, so I don't think you can do this, but like they need another creator. Like they need a shot creator. I'm interested to see if they go make a move and try to find one. And I would say, like, could you use Gafford, and then, but with Lively out as long as he is, I don't think you can move Gafford and feel comfortable doing that. So I don't know who the guy would be or what assets. I guess they could turn around and flip this first round pick and try to go get, I don't know what they have matching salary wise now. Grimes doesn't make that much. So I feel like another move to get another creator. Dinwiddie's been good, but
no, it has to be, they would have to go get one more creator at the end of the day. They really would. Like they're going to have a great defense, but it's a lot on Kyrie's shoulders now offensively.
It's a huge
to try and make this work.
You talk about leverage. So think about how much leverage does Kyrie have this summer?
Oh, enormous amount of leverage now. Like this has set Kyrie up quite well, in my opinion.
I mean, my point though is like if Nico was worried about like losing leverage or whatever, like he just like Kyrie they can't let Kyrie walk this offseason after you do this. So Kyrie has all the leverage for the contract he's going to get this summer.
Yeah, that's right. And like, oh, by the way, to your point on that, Kyrie, I believe I want to look at the deal before I talk about it, but yeah, Kyrie does have a player option for this summer where like if you're building around AD, like if your whole goal here is to build around AD, like you probably need to get a sense of where Kyrie's head at is on this now. Because if you lose Kyrie and you've traded for Anthony Davis, like it actually might be curtains for you if you're Nico Harrison.
Yeah. All right. I created a couple statements. I want to ask you.
Hold on real quick.
Okay.
So we have one final thing before we get to that.
Okay.
So Luka Doncic just released a statement.
Okay.
After all of this. So dear Dallas, 7 years ago, I came let's get this on here. 7 7 years ago, I came here as a teenager to pursue my dream of playing basketball at the highest level. I thought I'd spend my career here, and I wanted so badly to bring you a championship. The love and support you have all given me is more than I could have ever dreamed of. For a young kid from Slovenia coming to the U.S. for the first time, you made North Texas feel like home. In good times and bad, from injuries to the NBA Finals, your support never changed. Thank you not only for sharing your joy in our best moments, but also for lifting me up when I needed it the most. To all the organizations I've worked with throughout the Dallas community, thank you for letting me contribute to your important work and join you in bringing light to those who need it. As I start the next part of my basketball journey, I'm leaving a city that will always feel like a home away from home. Dallas is a special place, and Mavs fans are special. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, Luka. No statement of the Mavericks organization in there.
I think it was pretty clear who he wanted to thank and leave a message to and who he did not.
It's pretty clear to me. That's a real statement. It's a statement within a statement there to not thank like the Mavs organization. I think he should feel it. He should feel very frustrated.
Yeah, I mean, it had to be out of nowhere. These are those situations. I've said it before. I wish I could be a fly on the wall. Like, why? Like, and I don't blame Nico for like not, I guess, like completely saying it. You got to keep stuff public. And if he doesn't, like, if he, somebody said on the Hoop Collective, I think they said like, this is the biggest, like, this is the most gigantic short in the history of sports, right? Like Nico Harrison is shorting Luka Doncic's career. This is more than shorting the Phoenix Suns, and it's probably worse odds. But like, why? What I want to know, I want to hear or feel what makes him so confident in shorting Luka's career, whether it's something to do with Luka or this unwavering belief in AD. If that's what it is, I want to be able to understand it. And I've tried. Like, Chris, me and Chris argued for like 20 minutes today through text because I was trying to play the other side of this, just to play the other side, and I couldn't do it. And like, that's what's frustrating to me is usually I can at least see the other side, and I'm struggling right now. And I would love to like just talk to Nico for 5 minutes, like give me everything. Like, what is it that made you so confident that you could short 24, 25-year-old Luka Doncic's career? Like, it's fascinating.
And the thing that I would also say about Luka, and then we'll move to your questions here next, is the organization that drafted him has like completely rolled over from not just like the coaching staff to the front office, but literally like ownership.
Cuban. Yeah.
And by the way, like if Mark Cuban's here, like there's no way Mark Cuban's trading Luka. I'm just saying that right now. I haven't like talked to Cuban about that, but like I can't imagine a circumstance where Mark is trading Luka. But like ownership has rolled over. Front office has rolled over a couple of times. It hasn't been like a super stable front office, frankly, in all honesty. Coaching staff has rolled over, unsurprisingly, because Rick Carlisle has left. So it's not the team that drafted him anymore. Like the folks that selected him and like have built that long-term connection with him, they're all gone at this point. That's why Nico Harrison can feel like I can just do this, right? I can just go out on a limb and just go for this at the end of the day and decide, yeah, like this is what we want to do. We don't have the connection. We're just going to go for it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I said, I still can't wrap my head around it. And it's Cuban's interesting, right? Because we talk about meddling owners, but he might be the one that you wish was still there to meddle in this decision and not let it happen. So
yeah, and like this is the last thing we'll talk about with Luka and Dallas, maybe. But like I don't know if you remember the crazy rant that Wendy had on ESPN about like the tunnel and like over there, that's the tunnel where the winners are. Luka's over here in the other tunnel. That's not where the winners are. And like all that stuff, because like his defense has been such a problem. And, Windor said that like after that, like nobody from the Mavericks organization defended Luka, which typically would happen. Right. And it seems like they're tired of him. Sure. Okay, cool. I have no problem with that. You're probably right that on some level they were tired of him. He's kind of built that equity at the end of the day. And you can say that like maybe you can't win with a guy like that. I disagree in Luka's case. Like I think that dude is a real competitor who has stepped up in the playoffs like every single time that he's been asked to. The defense is an issue. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's not. Like he's not, you have to build a very specific team around Luka. But the guy's unbelievable. The guy's an unbelievable basketball player. And you just kind of have to make it work around him, I think.
Yeah, I guess I would be curious some of the more specifics around. Maybe it is just the defense. And again, like maybe this works. Maybe the defense is just that good and he was holding it back that much. And AD comes in there and sets the tone and Kyrie is able to handle the offensive load. And it's just really, really good. And I mean, again, we'll talk about the Lakers side of it in a second because the defense will be interesting there as well with what they have on the roster there. But so let me ask you this. So listen, guys, like I'm not saying any of these are true or false. Like they were just interesting things to say. And I want to get Sam's thoughts. So Mavs aren't contenders, but will knock off one of the Thunder Nuggets in the playoffs.
We've seen Jokic demolish AD countless times at this point. I mean, you can say that like now AD has like a real center next to him and you can throw AD on him.
My thought process was, okay, this size could hurt the Thunder. And does the idea of Gafford, Lively plus AD interest you in a matchup against the Nuggets? Essentially, it's like, can they knock off one of these contenders that people are talking about just because of the roster construction, just because of this defensive front line they've put together of PJ, AD, and these two bigs?
I think a Nuggets series is still like somewhat hard. Like it wouldn't stun me if that series is more difficult than, what you would think it would be potentially. I think Oklahoma City wins this series. The whole reason that the Mavs won that series last year was an aberrant PJ Washington shooting performance and Luka Doncic. And Kyrie played great in that series too, don't get me wrong, but like, yeah, like they'll throw Chet on AD with Hartenstein there at the top. You're basically making Chet you're making AD a jump shooter at that point. And then you have all of the dudes in the world to go take 5 minutes at a time on Kyrie and just tire him out. So I think Oklahoma City wins that series pretty easily.
And that was the series PJ went crazy knocking down corner threes, right? Like shot something ridiculous. Yeah. But again, almost all of those came off Luka ball screens where OKC was helping in from the low man on the weak side to take away the lob and Luka. And I'm not saying OKC was giving them open corner threes, but like they were having to give up something, and that's what they had chosen to give up. And Dallas made a lot. Okay. Mavs will go further than the Lakers in the playoffs this season.
Let me answer that on Thursday, I guess. Like, let's see if the Lakers go get a big. No, I don't agree with that. If they aren't able to get a deal for like a real big man, then very possible. Like it wouldn't blow my mind that they do.
Okay, so that leads me into my next one. The Lakers should trade Austin Reeves for a wing center combo.
I wouldn't if I was them, but I understand the idea. I would trade Connect and like the first they have for like a wing center combo. And I think somebody would probably do that.
How good do you think? Like, so I was trying to think, like, could they go to the Nets now and get Cam and Nick Claxton? Like, or does like Cam, so that you don't think they could put the package together to get Cam?
If they would offer Reeves, Dalton, and the first, I think that they might get Cam and Nick Claxton, but like I don't know. Like, I guess that's it's better, but how much better?
Can they get Cam without Austin?
Dalton and could you do Dalton in the 2031 first for
Cam and Day?
Cam Johnson and Day'Ron Sharp, maybe?
Is that good enough? If they go and get Day'Ron Sharp and then add Cam Johnson to the wing room, is that enough?
And then you throw in Rui because you have to do the money, right?
Because now you're starting.
The Nets do that.
you're starting. Well, I'm just saying, is that enough for the Lakers? Like, are the Lakers real tight?
Okay, so
let's
so
start
at
here.
that point, then you're at a starting lineup of Reeves, LeBron, Luka, Cam, and Day'Ron Sharpe is basically your starting lineup. You have Dorian Finney-Smith off the bench at that point.
Jackson Hayes off the bench.
Gabe Vincent would be off the bench too. That's an interesting team. That team is a real contender to me at that point.
I go to the Nets instantly because they have the wing that would be a real upgrade, and they have centers. And I'd be interested in your thought on this. Like, one of my worries right now is, like, I always thought a lob threat with Luka, whenever they put 48 minutes of lob threat with Luka, it was, listen, Luka's awesome no matter what, but it like 100% maximized him as an offensive player. And so, like, that's what I'm looking for them to go get, is somebody that you can really do that with. And so Brooklyn was the first team I went to. I don't know what other centers are going to be on the market that fit that mold of center to maximize him that way. But Brooklyn was the first one I went to.
Like, I'm not convinced Indiana does connect in that first for Miles Turner. I'm not convinced Utah does Kessler for connect in that first. Maybe Toronto would do Pirtle for connect in that first, but I don't know. Like, I don't think of Masai as a guy that's like, I'm willing to wait 7 years for this first round pick, even if it's unprotected. You know what I mean? So I don't know. But your question in terms of, like, can they go get a big? Like, if I'm them, I'm calling the Nets for Sharpe and, like, trying to get Day'Ron Sharpe for whatever I can get. Like, whatever.
What's more important, the big, or, like, that team is not good. How bad are they on the perimeter defensively, though, Sam? Because here's the thing. Here's what I will say about this. The Lakers just traded away their two best defenders. Agree?
AD and
Christie. Max.
Yeah, I mean, like, Dorian's in there too, but sure.
Okay,
like, I'll hear out Christie. Yeah.
Two of their top three. They're unquestioned tiers above everybody else, best defender. And then how many ever tiers down you want to go to the next guys, that Christie was in the next group. I mean, they traded two starters for, and again, I'm not justifying the trade. I'm trying to look at things, and this worries me a little bit. Like, the idea of Luka and LeBron playing together is awesome. Like, I'm juiced for this to see what it looks like and how it all works and all of that. I don't know how they guard anybody. I mean, like, to me right now, you almost have to go to Austin Reeves and be like, hey, your offensive usage is going to go way down. We need you to be.
Oh no, that, like, while both LeBron and Luka are on that team, Austin Reeves' usage goes way down.
Yeah, go stand in the corner offensively, and then please be the best defender on the perimeter that you can be. Because
I mean, honestly, if I'm them right now, I'm probably starting Reeves, Luka, LeBron, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Jared Vanderbilt, and just, like, switching everything and, like, trying to play, like, hyper aggressive. And it probably wouldn't be that successful, but you probably limit the damage off the ball in terms of, like, those guys getting cooked a little bit more versus, like, playing drop where those guys have to be, like, in unison off the ball. I'm not saying that that's, like, a great play. And, like, Jared's a good defender too. And, like, I think that having Jared be the center almost, but Jared's not enough of a vertical threat for Luka either, comparatively to other people. So yeah, they have to do something is the answer here. They're the team now I'm, like, most interested in at the deadline, like, point blank.
They're the team that you have to wait until after Thursday to really decide where they're at in the pecking order more than anybody, because it has to be an incomplete roster right now. So
yeah. Okay. What is your next thing?
No, we did the AD thing trade. Yeah. Those were my statements. So,
okay. I mean, in terms of the Lakers, we're kind of on them now. Like, part of the reason that I am a little bit, like, I'm almost, like, holding off on talking about the Lakers is just that they have so much to do still, it feels like to me. They have to figure out what they're going to do on the trade market more than anything. Maybe their center position, by the way, like, if Clint Capella just gets, like, bought out, right? That could be a very easy answer for this thing. And then you can go focus on getting a wing and, trading Connect in a first for Cam Johnson or something like that, right? I'm just like spitballing in terms of names. Like it could be, a few other guys here, but I do feel like there are a couple of ideas that you could come up with.
I feel like we've talked about Bruce Brown here. I don't remember if you liked that initially. Do you like it more now than maybe last time we talked about? Like, is he good enough defensively for this to be interesting?
Yeah, I mean, I would love Bruce Brown there. I think that if you could trade Rui in seconds,
I was gonna say, because it's also less. Because I mean, the one thing that's fascinating to me is the Lakers just changed their timeline, right? Like to an extent, because it was a very fast track timeline of 31-year-old AD and 40-year-old LeBron. I realize you still have 40-year-old LeBron, but now you have 25-year-old Luka. So like your timeline is different. So I'm not saying don't go to win now, but I think there is a little bit more of like, we have a top 5 player in the NBA for ideally the next 8 years. Let's make sure we maximize this 8-year window as much as possible. So it is interesting. So that's why I wonder, like, if a Bruce Brown, like you say, can you get a Capella and a Bruce Brown and still hold on to some of these other things, as opposed to getting rid of all of those assets, I guess.
I will say, like, it's a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be to get Bruce Brown there now, just because the Lakers like have to be pretty cognizant of the aprons at this point. Like it would almost have to be a bigger deal where like the Lakers are taking a flyer on like Chris Boucher being good, and then they're including like Gabe Vincent in something else to like even make the money work at this point. So even that gets like pretty complicated trade wise. Yeah, I'm fascinated to see where this goes for sure.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because it's like everybody feels like the Lakers won the trade, but I find myself feeling like as good as Luka is, I still feel like this is a flawed roster that he's on, and that I think they need to improve it before they're. I mean, when you have Luka and LeBron,
well, it's almost like the question is, if you're the Lakers now, like, are you almost better off punting this year and trying to get what you can for LeBron? But like LeBron has a no trade clause, and like that doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So if that's the case, like you've moved a bunch of your picks now moving forward, you probably don't have enough to be able to like really build around Luka, like truly. Unless you're able to get like max cap space in 2026, which honestly, like they're not that far off of that, I don't think, because I believe Vincent's deal expires then, Kleba's deal expires then. I mean, Reeves's deal expires then too, but they'll keep his bird rights. Rui's deal expires then. LeBron, he has the player option for next year. It would be expired at that point. Maybe this is the move for the Lakers. Maybe it is you just go, you get like a Day'Ron Sharpe and Jericho Sims or something like that. And then that's your center position for this year. You hope the wings can make it work. You roll out next year and say like, hey, this is what we're doing. We're signing guys to 1-year deals, and you play for max cap space in 2026. And that's your move. And you say, hey, we're open for business. Whoever wants to come play with this guy for the Los Angeles Lakers, we can do that now.
Well, this was my argument with Chris too, is like, what is the health of Luka? Like where is he at?
Seems like he's coming back this weekend.
Okay.
Soon.
Like
on the 8th was the report, is that he'll be back on the 8th.
Okay. So like, that was my other question, was like, okay, how healthy is he? Is there a ramp up? Like how many games are he going to be able to play? Like, integrating him, like this is going to be a change for that roster. We just talked about this changes a lot for Austin Reeves, because the ball is never going to be in his hands, or not nearly as much as it was. And I'm interested to see what LeBron, like how that works between Luka and LeBron. So I have my questions about this season with it, just because of some of the roster holes. I wasn't sure about Luka's health, and then them just kind of figuring out okay, how do I play off of each other, even though these are two of the smartest players maybe in the history of our game, probably in the history of our game. But you assume they figure it out quick, right? Like I would assume they will, but it's still interesting. I'm also fascinated to see what JJ comes up with, like offensive actions and sets and the designs wise to maximize them. That will be a lot of fun also.
See, like to me, like I've seen a couple of people say like you just automatically move Austin Reeves. I don't think that's really true, if I'm being honest. Like I'm looking at an era after LeBron
where he plays the Kyrie role. Just not
where Reeves gets to be like the second guy basically on the perimeter, which he's perfect for, like number 3 overall option, second guy on the perimeter. Like that's a perfect slot for him next to Luka. We've seen him play it, by the way, with LeBron now. We know what it looks like. If I'm them, I'm probably keeping Reeves and letting this go, unless like there's a star trade that comes available, like an absolute like superstar, we're going to get a guy kind of move. I'm probably keeping Reeves at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was trying to figure out, like, okay, does he fit into that role? You know, because he can play off the ball and then he can, have that on-ball usage in the second unit. And then, I don't think it's a bad role for him either. I just think when LeBron's there, that's not the role he's going to end up playing because LeBron is still there. Yeah. So like that's the kind of the weird X factor in all of this is he doesn't get to play that role because LeBron's going to be the secondary creator. And I would assume you would stagger Luka LeBron minutes whenever you have both of them. And so he's almost always playing that off ball role. So again, it's interesting.
And then like my final point here is like LeBron can be a free agent this summer. Like he has a player option for next year. He's obviously like, he literally said 2 days ago, playing with Bronny has been like the most rewarding experience of his like basketball career to this point. So even though they're in like 6th or whatever they are in the West, like it feels like he's super happy with all of this right now. So with that being said, he's probably happy enough to where he like sticks around and hangs out. But I'm definitely, if I'm Rob Pelinka, going to Rich Paul today and being like, hey, look, like, what's going on here? Is he coming back next year? Is he going to test free agency? If he's going to test free agency, it probably makes more sense for us to look at moving him. And he obviously has right of refusal, like wherever he wants to go, like we get it. But, this deal is just as future based as it is for the past. Like, I don't think LeBron's going anywhere. I just want to be very clear about that. I think LeBron will be in Los Angeles the rest of the year. But if I'm Rob Pelinka, like I'm going to Rich Paul today and being like, hey, like we just need some semblance here. Like, we're happy to send Bronny with LeBron. Like if he wants to go somewhere, like whatever it is. And if he's willing to stay, like we're happy to have him. You know what I mean? Like if he's staying next year and that's the whole thing, like we're great. Like this is awesome. We're super happy to have him and Luka, but I would want to know for sure before the deadline, like, hey, what are you guys thinking here? You know what I mean? Like, we've been good partners to you. Like, let's kind of get this together.
Yeah, and that's one thing I did think about last night. Not that I think LeBron move before the deadline is going to happen, but
it's like almost certainly not going to happen.
But the Lakers gave themselves time. They gave themselves 4 days to figure out the rest of this roster before the deadline, which obviously is a really good thing because they need to be able to figure it out and round it out and make another move to be more competitive this year, as did the Mavericks. Like I said, like we mentioned, they need to go get another secondary creator. So them getting it done on a Saturday night gives them, obviously we haven't seen anything today. So 3.5 more days to, maybe hash some of this stuff out before the deadline. But listen, I hope they don't move LeBron because I want to see Luka and LeBron play together. Like just as a basketball fan, something I never thought we would see is those two guys on the floor together. And I know this isn't LeBron of his prime, but he put up a triple-double in the Garden the other night. Like, it's not like he can't still play, especially on the offensive end. Those two guys could be a lot of fun. I think, pick and roll situations with those two guys. And yeah, I'm JJ should be in the lab drawing some stuff up right now to maximize that.
I'm sure he will. I'm absolutely sure that he will be. Okay. Any other big kind of takeaways here? I mean, like, I think we hit the idea of like they should have shopped him around more enough, right? Like, I think we've hit the Dallas side enough. The Lakers are just kind of an open question to me at this point.
We're going to talk about the Lakers again, right? Like, so this morning when I woke up and you and GMAC had already done the pod, I'm not going to lie, I was a little sad whenever you text me this morning and were like, hey, Bryce, I don't think we're going to pod on Sunday. And I even told Randy, like,
I wanted to see like what was, if there was going to be like some other stuff.
Well, and it's like, do you need to do 12, 2 pods in 12 hours and all of that? And Randy was like, you look frustrated. I'm like, yeah, I have thoughts I want to give off my chest. And like, I just want to talk to somebody about it, essentially, is what I want to do. And, so I was excited just to be able to bounce ideas off of you. But what I thought of was, we're going to get to talk about the Lakers again, because most likely there's another move. And then that move will again tie in. Okay, well, this made sense because Luka's here now, or man, I still don't think they're that good because, or whatever. So, there's got to be something there. Mavs, I don't know. And I wish we could live in alternate universes where we could have seen what he was worth on the open market. You know what I mean? Like, could you imagine? Like, I feel like Nico cheated himself out of being able to do that. How much fun would it be to set it like, okay, I'm going to trade Luka Doncic. That sucks. That's crazy. But I get to just listen and leverage this offer off that offer. And like, I feel like that's what you live for, is to be able to, and maybe not, maybe it wouldn't have been fun, but I would love to know what Luka could have gone for in a situation like that.
Yeah, I would have been very interested to have seen it as well. I don't know what it would have been, but I'm certainly curious to find out.
There would have been there would have been a Godfather offer, right? Like, he's 24, 25 years old.
Some team would have offered.
Some owner would have said, offer them literally whatever they want, because Luka and the name and the game and everything like that is worth it, right? Like, somebody.
Yeah, I think that some team would have given like all of their picks plus like a crazy good like not just like a good young player, but like a crazy good young player. I mean, the last thing I'll note here is just like, this sucks for Mavs fans. Like, I feel terrible for them. Maybe it works out. I hope it goes okay, but I'm pretty skeptical. Let's hit some super chats here before we get to all-star picks. NBA, shout out Logan Miziak. The NBA basically crowned Luka face of the league. I mean, that's basically true. Like, the NBA didn't do it, but I mean, like, this deal, if you don't think Luka is going to be the face of the league, like in LA, I mean, you got another thing coming, guys. He's absolutely going to be it.
Yeah.
What was the comment at the end when Nico was like, maybe we'll bury ourselves or be dead in 10 years? Jason Kidd looked like him, from Dookie Pie. Shout out to Dookie Pie on YouTube. Yeah, that was crazy to me. Like, Jason Kidd's face during that entire press conference, it was like one of those things where you've just gotten like the most like stunning news. I don't know if you saw O'Shea Jackson Jr., shout out Den of Thieves legend, Ice Cube's son. He was like doing his wrestling podcast, and he's a massive Lakers fan. He was doing his wrestling podcast and like looked at his phone and happened to see like Luka had been traded to the Lakers, and he's like just staring at the screen, looking at his phone for like 2 straight minutes, like completely blown away by this. So that's what I felt like. Jason Kidd was like a moon-faced like fan, almost trying to like reckon with what had happened here.
Yeah, and like, I was trying to read between the lines on like how he reacted, how Nico said things, on whether it put J Kidd on the hook or not. And there was a question asked that linked them together for the decision. And Nico, and again, like I respect some of the way Nico's did things. He very bluntly said, no, this was my decision, not J Kid's decision. And so again, whether we agree with his decision or not, I was like, okay, like he's taking ownership of it, which he obviously has to. But then there were other times where he's like, I know what type of players J Kid wants, and some of that it was, but J Kid just sitting there like that was interesting.
Quite funny.
And then he had to tell him that like, hey, nobody's playing today. And so like as soon as Nico left, I watched a little bit more of it because then they sat everybody today. Nobody played, and that's and they got killed. So
yeah. From T. Dot, gotta disagree. AD is an NCAA champ, NBA champ, FIBA World Cup winner, and Olympic gold winner. He's won at every level compared to Luka. I'm assuming this is in me saying that Luka is like a more historically relevant player than AD. Yeah, I mean, Luka won EuroLeague and won MVP of EuroLeague at 18. Like, or 19, it might have been. Like, EuroLeague is a more difficult competition to win than like the NCAA. Like, all due respect to the American-centric ideal of basketball, which is real, and like college basketball is incredible. You know, Bryce obviously loves college basketball, having played it and been in the NCAA tournament and everything. I don't mean to denigrate that, but it's harder to win EuroLeague and be MVP of EuroLeague than it is to win an NCAA title. And like FIBA World Cup winner, Olympic gold medalist. I mean, look, Luka led Slovenia and like all, again, you know, like I have like, I think a quarter of like Slovenian, like blood in my like heritage, like in my blood, like for Slovenia to have won a gold medal at Eurobasket ahead of these powerhouse programs like Spain, France, Germany, Serbia, like all of the, like, you know, the Yugoslav nations that have been there forever. I mean, that's almost crazier to me than Anthony Davis, like being on the America team, winning a gold medal at the Olympics. Yeah. I mean, I get it. Like, I do get it that your point is not ill taken. It's just, yeah, I think what Luka has done is more impressive. Personally,
I say he has a pretty, I'm not going to act like I was following international basketball to a crazy extent, especially then, but he has a pretty decorated international career before he came. And then like the big difference here is like AD has won a championship and Luka only got his team.
Absolutely true.
Like there is a difference there. And I won't even give it the caveat that AD was the second best player on his team and Luka was the best player on his team. Like at the end of the day, AD is a champ and Luka isn't. And there's some water to that 100%. But so that's fair. Like you said, T-Dot brings up an interesting thing. It's not like AD doesn't have a decorated career in terms of championships, all NBAs, defensive, you know, all defensive teams, like lots of it. So
AJS 5916 says, catching up on the pod, but the tax conversation gets overblown. Localities make up for the lack of state taxes with huge property taxes. I'm pretty sure that the property tax in California even is like damn near as big as it is in Texas. Property tax in California, I believe, is quite big. I'm not going to sit here and tell you like I know the intricacies of that comparatively, but like there's property tax in California too, and I can't imagine that it makes up for the difference between state income tax.
So
comparatively,
listen, I live in the middle of nowhere where cost of living is probably as small as as anywhere in the country, but I also assume LA's cost of living is more than Dallas. Am I just like not?
Probably.
Is that crazy?
I mean, look, I've lived in LA, so I know the cost of living in LA is insane.
I realize I realize Dallas is this big city and all of that. I understand. I just I assume like LA, New York, like those are the highest, and Dallas would be up there, but lower than them. So it's an interesting point. Again, I feel like I always say this, and maybe I sound ignorant when I say it to people who understand this stuff more than me. Like, I'm here to talk basketball, not finances. So I would love for somebody who understands finances better to, I'm not saying this like as a jerk, like truly enlighten me if I'm again out of pocket whenever I say, hey, the state income tax actually makes a difference in stuff like this. Because if that's wrong, I would love to know.
Yeah. I'm just going to hit pause here because Bob Vulgaris, who I think is like actually a good, interesting person to hear from on this, given that there was a moment there where he was, if not running the Mavericks, certainly like heavily involved with the Dallas Mavericks. Bob just made a statement, and Bob is a very smart, intelligent, interesting person. So we're just going to see what he said. This will go down as one of probably the worst trades in the history of sports. You just traded away a top 3 player in the prime of his career, and your return was a single first and soon to be 32-year-old Anthony Davis. The fact that you threw in a second for good measure is just chef's kiss. The Nets got 4 unprotected first and a pick swap, plus Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges, who they later traded for 5 firsts and a pick swap for KD, who was 34 at the time of that trade. The Mavs had a top 3 defense last season after the deadline trades, and they then lost in the finals to one of, if not the greatest offensive teams in NBA history in the Celtics. If you think defense wins championships and you want to be 3 centers deep on your roster and play AD at the 4 while forcing PJ to guard 3s, Clay to guard 2s, and Kyrie to guard 1s, good luck with that. The Mavs now have one player on their roster who can create a shot for himself or for others in Kyrie, and he's about to turn 33. The only other thing I'll add to this is Dennis Lindsey was with the Mavs last year and is a great basketball mind. He left to work for the Pistons this season. Do with that what you will. Pretty fun.
Strong.
Shout out Bob. Well, Bob's full of strong takes. I'm for it, man. Good for that. That's look, the reason that I think it's important to read what Bob said is because like he's been around it. He knows what it is. Like Luka, like he like was heavily involved with running that team under Cuban. He is very, very, very knowledgeable on what's going on here. The fact that he thinks this is insane, having been inside of it, understanding like some of the questions people have about Luka, to me says a lot.
Yeah.
Says a lot. That's a pretty good one. That's a good one from Bob. All right. We'll continue on the super chat.
Sorry. I was rereading it. Sorry.
Shout out Connor Andrews. Mark Cuban literally said, if it was between Luka and his wife, he'd choose Luka. Yeah, Luka was not getting moved if Mark Cuban was still there. I'm only here to push the J Huff narrative, also from Connor.
Hey, no, Connor, that's a great name. That's a great name.
Well, they had him. They had him. They didn't even have to give him up. And then what does it matter, bruh? Max was the 4th best defender. Vando and Dorian Finney-Smith both better.
Yeah, but
LOL.
Vando hasn't played, so like.
Yeah, I mean he's been back for like 2 games or whatever. So yeah, just doesn't.
And here would be my sure, he's the one guy that could guard on ball on the perimeter at the point of attack against like those smaller, quicker guards. Like we said that when DFS got traded there, that wasn't the type of matchups he was going to take. So maybe I was calculating. Sure. I still think he's in the same tier. So
yeah. Okay, let's go to All-Star stuff real quick because I don't really need to spend a ton of time on All-Star, and then we'll punt trivia to Thursday or honestly whenever the fuck we do trivia.
I mean, I've had this one for like 3
weeks.
Months.
Yeah. Let's say that.
Dramatic. Randy watched that movie though. I could give you a quick rundown on her thoughts on that.
We're definitely going to do that because I'm curious. Okay, where did this go? All-Star reserve selections. There we go. We've got it back up. We'll start with the Western Conference here because I just think the West is a little bit probably isn't quite as interesting to me. Anthony Edwards, Anthony Davis. Shout out Anthony Davis. James Harden, Jaren Jackson Jr., Alperen Şengün, Jalen Williams, Victor Wembanyama. Any thoughts, criticisms, concerns here on the choices for All-Star reserves in the West?
No, I mean, I text you and GMAC. I was pretty proud of myself. I think I went 11 of 12 in both conferences. And in this one, it was, I mean, obviously LeBron was going to make it, but I had somebody else. Who did I have here? I had Kyrie. So I think the big names were what Kyrie and Sabonis were the names that people really brought up, maybe out of frustration.
Booker as well was another one.
He's been playing really well recently, especially.
People brought up Fox and Sabonis and Kyrie. Yep, those are the ones for sure. I think I also went. I think I had Booker as well. So I think I had Booker over Harden. And for what it's worth, like if it was me, I probably would have all of Kyrie and Booker at the very least ahead of Harden here. So
yeah, because we had that conversation. I cheated too. I just wanted one of the Clippers on there, and I was having a hard time between Harden and Norm Powell. It's just the Clippers have been so good this year that it was a little bit of a representation thing for me that I wanted a Clipper to be represented.
Yep. Yeah, it's hard. Like so many of the teams this year are having success defensively, which is probably a case for the Dallas ideal, right? So many of the good teams this year, like Oklahoma City, Houston, LA, like they're all having an immense amount of success on defense more than on offense. And it just feels like Şengün is averaging under 20 points per game and has like a true shooting percentage of like 54% or something. I understand not being super excited about Şengün being an all-star, but he's been Houston's most consistent player. Houston's been the second best team in the West this year. You kind of have to have somebody there, I think, right? And like I get if you look at the numbers like top to bottom, that Sabonis's numbers will look way better than Şengün's, but I don't know. I think Şengün's been way better defensively than what Sabonis has been this year. I think that like the style of play and like the pace of play, Sacramento is 10th in pace of play. Houston is 18th in pace of play. Like it probably makes life a little bit easier on Sabonis being able to rack numbers, a small amount. I had no problem with Şengün over Sabonis, given just like the drastic difference in team success.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what gets tough in some of these, and I would never tell somebody how to do their All-Star or All-NBA. Like it's subjective, and I think that's what makes sports great. For me, I do think this is why my All-NBA stuff was messed up initially, because I was still trying to use too much team success. I do think it's a celebration of the league as a whole, and I think it would be not ideal if the Houston Rockets weren't represented, considering what they've done as a team this year. So I am comfortable with it being Şengün, and because they're second in the West right now. And I think they should be represented in the All-Star game.
And Jalen Williams has just been fantastic. Like all year, he was the other name that people brought up just because, the efficiency again isn't amazing, but I mean, he's an all defense guy this year, averaging 21, 5 and 5 or whatever for a team that's in first place in the West. I have no problem with Jalen Williams being there. The only thing I will say about this as we continue is, Brian brings up, should have 14 spots for each conference. I would just say 15. Just expand it to 15 to match NBA rosters now, in my opinion.
So when you tweeted this, I was ready to go on the pod and argue against it. Cause like, I don't love the idea of like, let's just add more spots. Let's just add more spots because we don't want to leave people off. And I know it's not about hurt feelings. Like I get that, but I was just like, no, like it should be an honor. Let's keep it at 12 and earn it. Right. And then I had to like check myself because I'm the one on the award show that pushed for what with all NBA defense, that there should be a third team because there's enough. So I was like, all right, Bryce, are you going to go back on the pod and say you were wrong about that? And I'm not ready to do that. My biggest worry is like, I hate when these things are too many and then you end up with people who don't deserve it. The more I thought about it, I don't think the NBA is going to end up in that situation, right? Where it's like, really, that guy's an all-star, and I think just if you push it to 14 or 15 or whatever, I think there's too much talent in the NBA for that to end up being the case. And so I eventually got to I don't care, but I don't have pushback to the idea the way I did initially.
Yeah. I would rather it be 15. You look back through past eras of the league, like there was like 12 guys when it was 9 teams. in the league, and now we're at 30. I mean, I just think that,
and going to go to 32 in the next handful of, maybe that's when they do it, right? Whenever they
Yeah.
expand.
That was my suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, by the way, Adam Silver just stealing your ideas off game theory about the number of minutes in a NBA game. How about that?
Yeah. I would like him to expand more on his reasoning for that, because I feel like
because he listened to you. That's why.
Yeah, because like I want like a full FIBA rule set. I don't just want 40-minute games. Like it can't just be 40-minute games with like the same like timeout rules. You know what I mean? Because then we're still just gonna have crazy long, endings that slow things down, right? Like there's more there for Adam to run through, in my opinion. Okay. Eastern Conference reserves. This is the one that got quite a bit of buzz. Jaylen Brown, Pascal Siakam, Darius Garland, Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Damian Lillard, and Tyler Hero. Okay. So the people that I saw get the most pushback were Tyler Hero, we'll talk about that in a second, and Jaylen Brown. I want to start with Jaylen because I think his is like the easiest to dismiss. This is like Jaylen got a front court spot. There isn't another choice in the front court, really. Like, I'm taking Jaylen Brown over Jalen Johnson at this point in the year. On top of that, Jalen Johnson is hurt. Embiid is out.
Franz and Paolo they don't have the games. I mean, they do have,
both.
I know there's not a game limit, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, both like super hurt for quite a long time, right? Franz, I think, is at like 29 games this year. Paulo is way less than that, I think. Like he's like in the teens. So you just look around, like who is your other front court reserve going to be? I don't disagree with people that Jaylen has had like a somewhat down year comparatively to like his past. But the problem is that Jaylen is like, he's the guy, like he's the guy you pick for this. Like he's still the best of the guys remaining, in my opinion.
Yeah. I'm surprised that's an issue. It's not really close to an issue for me. So yeah. I'm surprised for the pushback on that one.
And then like I had like one of Jimmy or Bam when we did this, and we did this like a month ago before the Jimmy stuff like really broke. Over Siakam. And since then, Siakam has had like an insane run here to bring the Pacers back to like tied for 4th in the Eastern Conference with the Bucks. Obviously, I would have Siakam as an all-star. Like Siakam should be an all-star, in my opinion. The real argument was here in the backcourt. It was basically 7 guys for 4 slots with the wild cards as well. So you had all of these guys who made it: Cade, Garland, Lillard, and Hero. On top of that, you have Trae Young, LaMelo Ball, and I would say Halliburton got himself into the mix here, at least later on, because of this run that Indiana is on. I think he is 7th of this group, but I will at least note that that's a thing. How would you have ranked that group of 7 for 4 spots?
So I probably would have had Trae. I had Trae in it when we did it the last time. So that was the only player I didn't have on. I agree with you. I think Siakam makes sense because he's been really, really good. Hero's been awesome though. Like I've been trying to push the Tyler Hero stuff. Here, I don't know. Hero probably deserves it. His efficiency is way better than Trae Young, and he's driving offense. I mean, nobody drives as much offense as Trae Young, but he's driving a lot of that Miami offense. So I think I'm okay with it. I would not have put Halliburton. I was cool with LaMelo not being on there based off his team's win-loss record. So essentially that gets to Hero and Young. Yeah, I'm okay with it. I would be okay either way. I think. I'm not upset.
I think where my answer was, it really came down to, I was able to eliminate LaMelo fairly quickly. I had him 6th of this group. it came down to Hero, Lillard, and Trey for me, and it'd be 2 spots for those 3 players. I would have had Trey over Hero at the end of the day. I think that the passing and playmaking and like overall ability to create offense for that team, I just would have gone with Trey. Like Trey has been incredible this season. His ability to just create everything for them has been awesome. They've been like a fairly good team throughout the year. They're 22 and 27 now because they're in the midst of this like crazy losing streak where, you know, they've just ripped off, what is it, like 8 losses in a row.
Yeah, something ridiculous.
Yeah, but like, you know, look, like Miami's not exactly like, you know, blowing the world on fire here. Like I think that they've lost like 6 of their last 9 or something like that. So if you want to go purely off of the scoring, Hero is the pick to me. He's at like 10% above league average. Shane is right here. Shane brings up Levine. Levine's another guy I looked at. So really there's 8.
Yeah.
Levine's been unbelievable this year. And honestly, I probably would have Levine over Tyrese the more I think about it. But with LaMelo at 6 was pretty easy for me just because of the missed games. Like he's played, I think it's like pretty damn close to as many minutes as Franz Wagner this year. And if you're not going to put Franz in the All-Star game in that front court situation, which, you know, I decided not to, like I would have had the 3 guys that they took in Jalen, Pascal, and Evan. I felt like having LaMelo off of the team was the right call at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I would have stayed there with LaMelo. Same with Tyrese. Yeah, that's a good call on Zach LaVine. Absolutely should at least be mentioned here. Yeah, like if I had to make the decision, I probably would have ended up with Trey. But again, I'm not mad about it. The Heat at this point are over 500. The Hawks are 5 games below. Yep. So yeah, they've lost 8 straight though. So yeah, it's tough. I mean, Cade, Garland, Dame, those guys were easy in my opinion, based on how they have played. And so, yeah.
And for what it's worth, Hero this season's averaging 24 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, shooting 47, 39, 86. His true shooting percentage is currently 7% above league average. LaMelo Ball, at this point in the year, he is averaging 28 points per game. So like 4 points per game more, 2 assists per game more, but the true shooting percentage is currently 5% below league average. So there's like a pretty drastic difference there in terms of their overall scoring efficiency. Also the turnovers for LaMelo, 3.7 versus 2.5 for Tyler Hero. Honestly, I would take Hero defensively over LaMelo Ball as well. All due respect to LaMelo. But on top, like the big issue for me is the minutes played. 1,600 minutes per game or minutes played this season for Hero versus just 1,000 for Tyler Hero, or for LaMelo Ball. I'm sorry, 1,000 for Ball, 1,600 for Tyler Hero. That's the big difference for me at the end of the day. Like he's played 1.6 times as often, and the difference between them, no matter how you want to slice it, it's not a big difference between them.
Yeah.
So, you know, even if you have LaMelo slightly ahead, then I'm fine with that. But the minute difference to me is just like drastically larger.
Well, okay. So let's do this thought exercise real quick. Let's say it was expanded to 15. What
Sure.
forward would you put on the roster?
I probably would have gone Franz next, and then it would probably be the 2 guards that I had in 5th and 6th, which would be
I just like
Trey and LaMelo.
You just said mention like, and I agree with you that like there's just not a whole lot of other bigs. There's not a whole lot of forwards, front court players, and so it's like, okay, if it was extended, and you would have to have, you couldn't put 3 guards. That wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. Who would it be? So yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. In the West, if we did that exercise, I guess it would be what, Sabonis, Booker, and who would be
Kyrie or Fox?
Kyrie.
At that point,
obviously Kyrie. It'd be Kyrie. Yeah. Or honestly, if you just wanted to put on Luka at that point too, and just be like, let's ignore the like games missed here, and he's played 22 already and he's played 800 minutes. If you want to do that, I'd still probably have Kyrie ahead, but yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I think that's where we're at on this. I think we can call it there. An hour 34 after an hour and a half last night from Andrew and I. You wanted to talk about Ranny's takes on Nosferatu, though. So
I don't care. I want to get your thoughts on it because I watched the trailer and what did I text you? Absolutely not, I think was what I said. So
yeah, so I loved Nosferatu. I think that it's an absolutely like beautiful film in a lot of ways, like the way it's shot. Jaron Blaschke and Robert Eggers are just like geniuses together in terms of the way that they construct these frames on screen. And I think there are so many shots in that movie that just look essentially like a painter's like frame that you would build. They're some of the best cinematography in that movie. It's one of the best movies in terms of how it looks on screen that I've seen all year. And I'm now up to 102 from 2024 alone. So I have like a pretty good base now. I've seen all of the Oscar movies except for A Different Man, Sing Sing, and I'm Still Here. So I have like a pretty good shape of that race now too. I would have probably Nosferatu for best cinematography, and I'd have it for best picture, but I know that I'm not as high on some of the best picture films as some people are. So what were Ranny's thoughts?
Okay, so I'll go line by line. So she said, I was expecting it to be scary and it wasn't. So
it's not really that scary. I agree with her.
Okay. Next, she said it was interesting, but probably won't watch it again. Then she said, I'll try not to. How long has it been out? Like, are spoilers okay? Or should I? Okay, so I won't spoil.
Yeah.
She said, wanted more of the beginning story.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
She's been very hard. This is the first thing she told me when I asked her about it. This is a text message now, but she was like, I think she really wanted the backstory and not just like, hey, this is what happened and now we're going to move forward. She wanted to see how that happened. Okay. She said, I thought Lily Rose did great.
Yeah. She should be nominated for best actress in my opinion.
Okay.
Randy is right there.
She said Exorcism meets Dracula.
Yeah, I'm into that. Good take.
And then she said, I'm not comfortable saying all of this. She's laughing outside the door. I don't know if you guys heard that. She thought the ending was lame.
Yeah, so we shouldn't talk about the ending, not because
of
the content, but more because it's the ending of the movie. Ending has one of the wildest final shots I think I've ever seen in a movie. I think they didn't quite build enough to the ending. I think that the ending just kind of happens, unfortunately, as opposed to it like really, like building to a conclusion. I would have liked to have seen it build to more of a conclusion.
I'll tell you off air exactly what she thought about it. And then she said, out of the Skarsgård brothers, I would definitely pick Alexander in his True Blood character. I don't know what that means, but she said that she wanted me to say that.
Both vampires. So yes, Alexander is a vampire. Bill is, Nosferatu is obviously a vampire. Understandable for Randy to say that.
And she doesn't care that Luka Doncic got traded. She's just waiting to figure out where Jimmy Butler's next home is. So she could care less about the other hour and 30 or any of, the last 2 minutes is all she cares about because it wasn't Jimmy Butler.
Look, so that gets us to our schedule here. So if Jimmy Butler is moved, we will go live, obviously. I will. I'm assuming Bryce will probably be involved.
All week, Yep.
If De'Aaron gets moved, we'll obviously go live. If somebody like a little bit lower tier than that, like if Cam Johnson gets moved, honestly, I'll probably go live. If Bryce wants to come, like by all means, feel free.
Sure.
But we're like here for the deadline. You can expect us to just go live as soon as the deal happens. We'll talk through it. We'll break it down in detail. We'll just kind of jump in and see where this whole thing is at, right? And see whether or not we like the deal, we don't like the deal, everything that goes along with all of those things. So expect that coming here moving forward.
And then Thursday we'll probably go live after the deadline, no matter what, to recap everything. Correct?
That is correct. Thursday after the deadline, we will 100% be live because there will be a flurry of deals on Thursday. Like I feel quite confident of that. Where everything kind of sits right now is it feels like things are kind of finally starting to move again after the craziness of the Luka AD thing. But also like teams are waiting to see what Sacramento does with De'Aaron, what Miami does with Jimmy Butler. That feels like the next kind of step. Those teams kind of making a decision because a lot of the way the CBA is right now with all the aprons and everything, some of these teams that can be a third team, like the Detroit Pistons, like the Utah Jazz, like the Toronto Raptors, like the Washington Wizards, right? These teams with exceptions or with cap space in the Pistons case, right? Or expiring contracts. Like those teams, I think, are waiting to see what happens there first, because getting involved in that deal is in all likelihood probably the easiest route to getting like a fairly high bounty for being willing to take on money.
So that like those teams, don't you think those teams probably have 2 or 3 deals lined up? Like, don't you think the Pistons probably have plan B and plan C lined up, but they're like, hey, we're not doing this until we know whether, because like, I think something that was interesting to me yesterday was the Jazz got 2 second-round picks for Jalen Hood-Schifino. And as somebody like, I'm like, okay, maybe the Detroit Pistons could get more draft capital than what I thought they might if they take on $14 million in salary or send out Fontecchio and take in $20 million. And I'm like, okay, maybe there's more draft capital there than what I thought was going to potentially be there if some of these teams really get motivated. So,
well, earlier in the day too, though, like the Jazz also got one second-round pick for taking on like $5 million in extra money.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be a moving target. I think teams are just going to like try and get the picks that they can, in all honesty. Like in this case, the Jazz are taking on 2 second-round picks to take on 3.8 million. I think it is 3.6 maybe. So it's a bit of a moving target depending on like what is able to be done here. Utah, Danny Ainge, Justin Zanuck, like those guys just are always happy to be like the third team and get assets. We've seen that throughout their tenure in Utah. Really good situation here for those third teams. But I think those third teams are waiting to see what springs available for Jimmy and De'Aaron first. And then after that, I don't know if they have like plan B directly set up after, where like they have deals like on deck where it's like, okay, if this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens. But I would imagine there are deals that like teams are waiting on some level.
I guess I just thought like, I wonder if like Trajan has something lined up where it's like, okay, I'll execute this trade if we don't end up being a player for the Bucks or the Suns or whoever to move off, like, okay, well, because we can't just go through with $14 million in cap space. They have to do something. So I'd always be interested, because then those would kind of be weird conversations, because the other team may be like, no, like, let's get this done now and move forward. So I feel like that's always probably a delicate type conversations of wait, execute. No, your plan B, we need to hear from this first. Okay, fine. We'll go to somebody else then type of stuff. So,
yeah, no, I mean, like very, very real chance that is a thing that will happen. I just think that we're a couple of days away from the deadline still, to where like teams are still getting that, board of deals in order, kind of. Sure. I guess is what I would say.
Yeah.
Bryce, tell the people where they can find you.
Yep. At Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, motorcityhoops.substack.com. If your favorite team plays the Pistons, I put notes about them. I think there's some pretty like cool video stuff I put on there, like ball screen usage, stuff like that. So just trying to watch the NBA in general more, like check it out. The Pistons Pulse podcast. And then of course, right here, Game Theory podcast with Sam Vecenie.
Go follow Game Theory over on all of our social media platforms, X, TikTok, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram. Go follow me over on Instagram, Sam_Vecenie. I'm posting more on Instagram, bizarrely, finding more fun and more time in doing that. Big mix of things that I kind of post about, from movies that I watch to books I read, kind of across the board. But also you'll find a lot of basketball stuff there too. Go subscribe to this podcast on YouTube, Game Theory Podcast with Sam Vecenie. Tomorrow we will have a breakdown video of Cam Boozer against Koa Pete. I went through and did that. That was kind of fun. I'm gonna have to figure out a better strategy, I think, for some of the high school stuff. But we're gonna do Cam Boozer, we're gonna do Darren Peterson, we're gonna do AJ DeBanza, we're gonna do a few guys because there's access to tape and it's fun to be able to break those guys down. Also, we do videos all the time on NBA players. Later today, I'm going to record on Rob Dillingham and Asar Thompson to go out later this week. Just kind of tape breakdowns, explaining what's going on the court, explaining what makes these players interesting, not interesting, things like that. Lot of good stuff over on the YouTube channel. So please, by all means, go subscribe to that thing. Go subscribe to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. We've had so much great stuff. You'll get something from me here coming up soon where I'll write about the Luka Doncic thing. Like, frankly, I think what I'm writing about is that, are we like underrating how good Luka is almost? Like, that's almost what this feels like to me. It feels like Dallas shorting Luka is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. We'll talk through that, obviously. But go follow all of those many platforms that we've got. Until next time, we'll talk soon.